What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special. Today we're going to take some time to get to know Saule Omarova, the communist academic who wants to grant herself the ability to delete your money whenever she sees fit, and she's been nominated to be one of the most important bank regulators in the United States. Oh, good! Thank you for joining me. I'm Jack Gamble and I'm Nobody Special, and today we are going to get to know Saule Omarova, who has been nominated to head the Office of the Controller of the Currency, one of the top banking regulators in the country. Now, I described Saule Omarova in my intro as a communist academic. That may seem a little over the top to some of you, but as we are going to see from her background and from her own words, that is really not that big a stretch of the imagination. Now, before we get into this, folks, I have to ask you, could you please like and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell? It really helps me out. It helps me to keep this channel growing, and I'd be forever in your debt. And now with that, it is time to shrink my big fat melon of a head, and let's get to know Miss Saule Omarova. Now, before we watch a couple of videos and hear directly from her, let's just get a little bit of her background. Saule Omarova, she's a Kazakh-American attorney, academic, and public policy advisor who was nominated to serve as the controller of the currency by President Joe Biden. Now, there's a little bit about where she teaches at Cornell Law, yada, 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 but I want to draw attention to her background. Now, she was described as a Kazakh-American, but you will see when she was born in modern-day Kazakhstan, at the time, it was the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic, a.k.a. part of the USSR. She is a Soviet. Moving on, Omarova graduated from Moscow State University in 1989 on the Lenin Personal Academic Scholarship. Now, I don't know too much about the Lenin Personal Academic Scholarship, but I am guessing they don't give scholarships named after the father of Soviet communism to people who espouse the principles of free market capitalism and democracy. Just going out on a limb here and saying that's probably not how you earn a Lenin Personal Academic Scholarship. And her thesis apparently was titled Karl Marx's Economic Analysis and the Theory of Revolution in the Capital. Not exactly a very free market capitalist democratic title, is it? Now, I'd love to read the text of this, but this document has disappeared from the internet. Nobody can find it. It's almost like they don't want you to know what her thoughts really are. And luckily, the internet never forgets, because we can hear directly from Saule Omarova herself what she thinks the world should look like.
Imagine what would it be like if, instead of being just a public option for deposit banking, this would be actually the full transition. In other words, there will be no more private bank deposit accounts, and all of the deposit accounts will be held directly at the Fed.
I don't know, this is some kind of like commie Twilight Zone thing. There's, picture, if you will, the institution that told you inflation would be transitory and was well below our 2% target suddenly takes over every bank account in the world. What's the worst that could happen? Well, let's listen a little more.
And there are very interesting implications from that thought experiment. For example, with the much more direct and proactive tools of monetary policy, like helicopter money, which is, considered
Helicopter money. Yes, it would make helicopter money so much easier. And she says that like it's a good thing. Folks, helicopter money is not a new theory. Helicopter money has been around for thousands of years, and we know what happens with helicopter money. Helicopter money causes inflation. Every time. It has been done for thousands of years, and every time it was the beginning of the end of the civilization that implemented that stupid policy. Helicopter money is stupid. Printing money and giving it to people does not create prosperity. It doesn't create wealth. All it does is steal value from existing currency, i.e., they're taking the money out of your banking account, they're putting it in your mailbox, and they're saying you're welcome. Also, they're giving themselves a slice on the way. So she's saying the Fed should take over all the bank accounts because it would make it easier for them to make this classically stupid monetary policy decision. I don't think that's a good thing. But wait, there's more.
considered radical, primarily because economists really do not know how to manage the issue of what will happen in the inflationary environment when the central bank needs to contract the supply of money. How is it politically feasible for the central bank to effectively take money away from people's accounts?
Oh, that's special. Isn't that just adorable? What? Let's play that last part again, because I feel like maybe some of you didn't take the walk with me.
The issue of what will happen in the inflationary environment when the central bank needs to contract the supply of money. How is it politically feasible for the central bank to effectively take money away from people's accounts? To imagine.
So how can it be politically feasible for the central bank to take money away from people's accounts? Folks, I want you to understand she's not talking about a tax. All right? She's not talking about sending you a bill where you pay it, or some act of Congress where they say we want to fund roads and bridges and we need to raise taxes to do it, and then we vote on it and then you get a bill for it. No. She's talking about the central bank, i.e. the Federal Reserve, taking over your bank, taking your money, and if they need to, deleting your money out of existence against your will. That's exactly what she just said. Take money from people's accounts. And she's worried about how do we make that politically feasible. Well, the same way communists always make that kind of stuff politically feasible, by dividing society into smaller groups, making them hate each other, making them fight each other, granting exceptions to their friends and their buddies so that their money doesn't get deleted. Only everybody else, only the peasants' money gets deleted in order to create common prosperity. And then, we can print all the money in the world we want to fund our projects and to make ourselves rich and to make sure we don't cause inflation problems. We'll just delete the people's money. Problem solved, right? Feeling cute. Might suppress the proletariat later. IDK. That's what she's talking about doing here. All right. This is the person who has been proposed to be the top bank regulator in the country. And I just want to say, the Office of Controller of the Currency, all right, they are the people who brought us Operation Choke Point about 10, 15 years ago. All right. Operation Choke Point is where the Controller of the Currency began hitting banks with so many subpoenas and requests for information about certain clients who were engaged in industries that the Office of Controller of the Currency didn't like, right? Industries like firearm manufacturers, industries like payday loans, or even adult film stars, right? Like 19-year-old girls, that the Office of the Controller of the Currency just decided they didn't like what these people did for a living. They didn't like their industry. Now, keep in mind, whatever your thoughts on these industries are, they are legal industries, okay? They're very heavily regulated, but they are legal industries. Well, they didn't change the laws. What they just did is they created so much headache for the banks that the banks dropped them all as customers. So they cut off access to any kind of banking. They destroyed these people's lives because they didn't like what they did for a living. That was what the Office of the Controller of the Currency did in the early 2000s and the 2010s. They destroyed people's lives because they didn't like what they did for a living. They took their social moral compass and decided, without changing the law or proposing any kind of change to the law, that they were just going to ruin these people's lives because of what they did for a living. So now we want to put this lady in charge of that group. Oh boy, what's the worst that could happen? Okay, but you know what? That was one video. Let's not pass judgment based on one video. Let's see a little bit more. Maybe I'm just not giving her a chance. Let's see what she has here in this video to say.
For certain troubled industries and firms that are in transitioning. And here what I'm thinking about is primarily coal industry and oil and gas industry. A lot of the smaller players in that industry are going to probably go bankrupt in short order. At least we want them to go bankrupt if we want to tackle climate change, right?
Oh, that's special. Yeah, it's just this companies we want to bankrupt while we're taking over your bank account, right? While we're deleting your money, we're also going to single out industries we don't like and make them go bankrupt. Now, look, you want to tackle climate change, folks, that's fine. Good luck. It's a noble pursuit. If that's really what you want to do, fine. However, as it stands right now, the state of technology in the world, fossil fuels are required in order for people to survive winter and eat. Okay? In order to feed and sustain the population, we need fossil fuels. And if you think I'm kidding, look at what's going on right now in the fertilizer industry. All right? The price of natural gas has gotten so expensive that fertilizer has gotten ridiculously expensive. Fertilizer plants are shutting down, and farmers are having to make difficult decisions right now. Are they going to plant different crops next year? Are they going to cut back on the fertilizer that they use? Which means next year there's going to be less food grown in the world, which means food prices are going up next year. And when food prices go up, people in poor parts of the world die, and people in other parts of the world riot, and governments topple, and wars break out. No, this is not FUD, folks. You think I'm kidding? Look at what happened to food prices right before the Arab Spring. Yeah, when people can't afford to eat, they go crazy. They get really pissed off. And right now, what's happening with energy prices and the big spike in natural gas prices, it's making next year's food more expensive. And we are in for a world of hurt next year when the price of food just goes through the roof. And Saule Omarova is in this video saying, yeah, we want to bankrupt these industries. We want to create shortages of oil and gas so we can tackle climate change. Look, if you want to tackle climate change, good luck to you. Just don't starve people to death in the process. Please. Pretty please. With a big effing capitalist cherry on top. Do not starve people to death in order to further your social agenda, as communists are historically known to do. Okay, moving on. Again, maybe I'm not giving this Omarova the benefit of the doubt. All right, let's see. Here's some more of her own words. Let's check out this video.
The NIA is actually meant to be a different model than EIB, right? So the way we basically get rid of those carbon financiers is we starve them of their sources of capital.
The way we get rid of the financiers is by starving them of their sources of capital. Remember I was talking about Operation Choke Point and how the Office of the Controller of the Currency had a reputation for targeting entire industries for bankruptcy based on their social ideology? Well, let's listen to it again, what she's saying.
Different model than EIB, right? So the way we basically get rid of those carbon financiers is we starve them of their sources of capital.
Again, we just established, folks, that what's going on in the fossil fuel industry right now is going to cause starvation in poor parts of the world next year. People are going to starve to death, and there is going to be social unrest and possibly wars breaking out because food is going to get so expensive next year. And what she's talking about doing is making that worse, making that policy. Again, if you want to tackle climate change, do not starve people to death in the process. Now, she also mentioned something called the NIA in that video. And I did a double take. What's the NIA? I forget it. But just before doing this video, I decided I wanted to Google the NIA to see what she's talking about. And I came across this little white paper. Data for Progress. The Climate Case for a National Investment Authority, NIA, written by one Saule Omarova in August of 2020. How convenient. And if you're wondering what she's talking about, well, let's just read this. The economic devastation caused by the cerveza sickness creates a crucial opening for a speedy and deliberate move to a massive infrastructure-led rebuilding and greening of the U.S. economy. I.e., we want to take advantage of the economic devastation caused by all the people who got sick and died from the cerveza sickness to further our social environmental agenda. In the wake of the worst health crisis in over a century, potentially followed by the worst economic depression in nearly as long a time, the political mood in the U.S. is increasingly open to big and bold solutions. So what she's talking about is taking advantage of the cerveza sickness, because I can't talk about certain things on my YouTube channel without getting in trouble. But she wants to take advantage of that to further her agenda. Now, in this white paper, she is talking about the creation of the National Investment Authority. And I want to read you some of this. Basically, she wants to institutionalize the Green New Deal, which maybe you like the Green New Deal, maybe you don't. Half the country likes it, half the country doesn't. We have a way of making these decisions in the country. We vote, we elect people. We don't grant ourselves new authority to go around the electorate and do whatever the heck we want. But I want to read you a little bit of this. Congressional paralysis and partisan battles over federal budget deficits render the U.S. Treasury incapable of leading a real infrastructure reconstruction program. So she's saying it's too hard to pay for infrastructure right now because people don't agree on how the money should be spent. Well, folks, that's democracy. People do not always agree. Sorry. The Federal Reserve has not been able to step into the resulting institutional gap, primarily because of its limited legal mandate focused on conducting monetary policy, as well as a lack of an institutional apparatus to direct capital. Yes, the Federal Reserve does not have the authority to unilaterally decide how everybody's money gets spent. I understand how a communist may see that as an inconvenience, but the free world understands that it is not a good idea to give people that much power. And here she is sitting here complaining that it's too hard for Congress to do anything because they don't agree. So we're just going to create this National Investment Authority backed by all of the banks, your money that we just took over, and we're going to let them do exactly what I want them to do. If you think I'm kidding, here we go. The establishment of a dedicated public investment authority, the National Investment Authority, is a pragmatic structural solution to this seemingly intractable policy dilemma. The two institutional pillars of Treasury and Central Bank are simply insufficient to support sustained and inclusive economic development. There is a critical policy gap between their two mandates, and neither existing institution can fill this gap without compromising its core mission. An NIA can step into this void, publicly marshaling private funds to supply systemically important infrastructural goods that are not supplied by private actors. So what she is talking about, folks, is she wants to create this private government authority that lies somewhere between the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve, i.e., part of the executive branch of government, right, where they can direct how private money, which they have taken over at the Federal Reserve now, they've taken over all the private money, and now they have this NIA that is in charge of how it gets lent out. Because remember, banks make money by lending out your money, right? Banks make loans. When you put money in a savings account, it gets sent out in loans, and that's how the bank makes money off of your money. Well, now the Federal Reserve has your money. So now the Federal Reserve also controls who gets a loan and why. And Saule Omarova wants to create this National Investment Authority that is going to take your money and decide how it gets loaned out. And how does it get loaned out? According to Saule Omarova's moral compass and her vision of what the world should look like. Not based on how Congress decides to debate an issue and let the voters choose and then allocate money that way. No, we are going to create this overarching authority who has singular power to institute their vision of the world. I.e., this is communism, folks. This is creating a central government that controls all of the means of production and giving them unilateral authority on how money gets lent out. And again, she's said before, she wants, in her own words, she wants to bankrupt oil and gas. Forget what that means for the world. She wants to bankrupt them. She wants to cut them off from capital. That was in her own words. That's why she wants to create this NIA that controls how money gets lent out, so she can handpick who gets the money and who doesn't. And again, on top of that, if inflation ever gets too out of control from her helicopter money, she's also granted herself the ability to just go into your account and hit the delete button and make your money vanish. That way she can print more for herself and lend it to her buddies. This is who has been nominated to be the top bank regulator in the United States. Well, isn't that special? Folks, these are not new ideas. These are not innovative ideas. Everything Saule Omarova is proposing in her videos and in her white papers has been done already in countries that have collapsed or on the verge of collapsing, i.e. the Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea. Okay, this has been done already. It doesn't work. Saule Omarova is not qualified to be a bank regulator in a free market capitalist economy. She's not. She is qualified to plot big trouble for moose and squirrel. That's about it. So keep an eye on Saule Omarova in this story. This is a very big deal, all right? If she is put in charge of the Office of the Controller of the Currency, then we are looking at a return to the days of Operation Choke Point, where businesses and industries that she doesn't like suddenly find their assets and their money frozen. Why? Because she doesn't like them, not because the laws changed, not because they committed any crimes. No, because Saule Omarova doesn't like them. People are not supposed to have that kind of power in this country. Anyways, folks, that's all I got for you on this one. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell. It really helps me out, helps me to keep this channel growing. In the meantime, live small and dream big.